Hi, this is Tim Matanovich from Value and Pricing Partners. Today I'll be talking about value and pricing specifically for professional services organizations. I'll be talking about some of the big issues related to value and pricing, outline some of the key frameworks that we use when we address client challenges, and third, talk through 3 business cases. For more information, if you'd like a copy of this deck or you'd like to reach out to us, there'll be a link in the description below. According to the Technology Services Industry Association, these are the top business challenges facing professional service organizations. And there are several of these that relate specifically to value and pricing. The first is that PS organizations as a whole are looking to improve their pricing practices. Why? This could be driven primarily by margin desires amongst tech companies. Tech margins are under pressure in a lot of areas, and price is one of the single most powerful drivers of margins and profitability. So improving pricing can improve price performance for the organization. Second area is bringing new offerings to market. New offerings are a unique opportunity to set price expectations in the marketplace, and managers routinely undervalue new offerings that they bring to market. So focus on new offerings and bringing them to market, particularly in a SaaS era, can be of particular value to PS organizations. A third area is sales practices. Pricing can often be too complex. Pricing may not be structured in a way that makes it easy for sales to explain it to customers or for customers to understand. Offering design and pricing may not be working together very well. It may simply be that prices are too high, in certain cases causing lost sales and driving higher discounting. At any rate, all of these factors can be reasons why improvements in pricing practices can in fact lead to greater sales effectiveness. And all these things together can work to improve the professional services business model. Price is one of the primary drivers of profitability, and as a result, one of the primary engines inside of the PS business model. What do we do? At Value and Pricing Partners, we help organizations operationalize solutions for some of these challenges. We accelerate the path to proof of concept solutions so these solutions can be tested inside of a client organizations, and we help scale solutions enterprise-wide so that they can work inside of a $100 million organization or a $1 billion organization. Let's move on to some of the frameworks and approaches that we've used successfully inside of professional services organizations. These frameworks can be found in our book, Profitable Technology Services Pricing, available on Amazon, and we've been referenced in the Technology as a Service Playbook by Thomas Law and J.B. Wood from the Technology Services Industry Association. The first framework I want to talk about is really related to price management and governance. If you're looking to improve price performance in a hurry, improving management and governance is probably the first place to look. We often find revenue leaks equal to roughly 1 to 3% of revenues that can be captured within the first year of improving better pricing practices. If you're looking for short-term results, this is the place to play. Over time, what we've seen is that organizations can improve 3 to 5%, maybe even as much as 10% increase in revenues as a result simply of improving their management and governance practices. A second area is really offering and pricing design. This is all about conceptualizing value delivered, really identifying customers that are willing to pay more for value, identifying those target customers and target segments, and designing offering and pricing that'll fit for those kinds of customers. Also, this is where you design your offering and pricing so that it facilitates value for price trade-offs during negotiations. This becomes important because rather than simply discretionary discounting, we want to replace that with value for price trade-offs. And that's been proven repeatedly to work inside of organizations. A third thing is really in the age of technology as a service is dynamic pricing across the land, adopt, expand, renew customer sales cycle, where revenue generation has to happen not only at the front end of the engagement, but throughout the customer engagement lifecycle. So at the front end, perhaps you need to introduce your offering with a proof of concept price. Then there might be an introductory price that's based on economic value. And then professional services may have a role in gaining adoption and measuring value delivered, increasing utilization. During the expand phase, what we're seeing is that sales organizations, some of their functions is actually transferring over to professional services that are becoming an important channel during the expand stage of the customer lifecycle. And finally, at renewals, professional services in many cases may have package services that are they want their customers to consume year in and year out, like, for example, optimization services. So getting these renewals when the buyer may be different than they were at the outset of an engagement may be critical. Dynamic pricing is really driven by the systems that you have and your ability to generate information, specifically around consumption analytics, although the data analysis may be broader than that. And we utilize predictive modeling in order to understand which customers, maybe those that have higher willingness to pay, so that we can generate increased revenues from them based on value delivered, and also identify those kinds of customers who maybe are not paying their fair share, and deciding how we might be able to migrate those customers to a higher position of sales and margins. What's the payback from investments in pricing? Well, it can be pretty dramatic. We've run into a whole variety of different ROIs from working with our clients. We've been working with professional service organizations now for about 12 years. And what we found, but this comes specifically from the TSIA's market rate study that we often use for benchmarking professional services inside of tech companies. And this is based on an analysis of 24 PS organizations, where what we found was that as customers migrated their offerings from cost-based to migrate to value-based pricing, they can triple the amount of net income they generate from those kinds of customers. Now, in professional services specifically, you're likely never going to get entirely away from cost-based pricing. But particularly in the as-a-service world, where you need to define value-added services that customers are willing to spend their discretionary money for, those are the kinds of services where value-based pricing works really well and can really become a powerful lever in improving your overall business margins. So let's take a look now at some of the client cases that we've had. Setting and managing global prices and discounting, establishing pricing governance and monetizing customer success, and getting paid for outcomes. For the first example, let's look at setting and managing global prices and discounting. The situation as we walked into it was that the company was using cost-based pricing. And their cost-based pricing model simply wasn't supporting the kind of growth and margins that the company needed to generate. Since cost-based pricing really ignores the marketplace, and that's one of its primary flaws, they were unable to really incorporate market or competitive pricing intelligence into their annual planning or their operational decisions. Also, because costs varied widely in their global marketplace, they had wildly inconsistent pricing and discount levels across over 100 sales locations worldwide. And again, cost-based pricing largely ignores the brand value that this organization had in abundance in the majority of their markets. So what did we do? We helped them move from a cost-based to an updatable, reusable, market-based pricing model. And then we helped them globally deploy that over their 104 distinct market areas. That also permitted real-time what-if analysis and adaptation. So as they got feedback from individual markets or new competitive intelligence, they could look at the model and understand what the consequences would be for their organizations as a part of their ongoing decision-making. As a result of this transition from cost-based to market-based pricing, they saw a 4 to 5% revenue growth, which was a 16 to 20% margin growth in their first year deploying the model. If you're interested in more details about the approach, those are included in the presentation. So please, once again, click on the link below and request a copy of this deck. The second example I'd like to address is establishing pricing governance and monetizing customer success. As we walked into this organization, what we found during our initial assessment phase was that 90% of their discounting was taking place before their pricing controls engaged. That would be great if we could change the controls, but what we found, and as we find in many organizations, is that their control systems couldn't be changed in the short run. They were using cost-based pricing, and that cost-based pricing, as often happens inside organizations over time, is that it drives list prices higher and higher, and sales responds with higher and higher discounting. And this service organization was under increasing pressure to raise margins, to contribute to corporate profitability. So what did we do? We developed an updatable, reusable pricing governance model using multiple factors to set customer-specific discounting. For example, we could look at that customer's history of purchases with us and see what kind of margins we had historically generated. We could look at their scores on their quarterly business reviews to determine what we've accomplished for them. We could look at the kinds of business outcomes they've achieved, what customer success we've been able to show. And all of that could be factored into setting target discounts for select customers. So what we did is move from 100% discretionary discounting to strategic discounting for target customers based on their history with us. This permitted real-time discount management using both portfolio and account level dashboards that could be used by sales managers as well as broader managers in the organization. And finally, in order to pilot this kind of a initiative, a pricing office was established, and one of their primary roles was to oversee a set of pilot programs to evaluate these changed pricing practices over time. And that's currently in place inside this organization. Again, there's more detail if you want to obtain a copy of this presentation. The third example is how to get paid for outcomes using the land, adopt, expand, renew approach. Getting paid for outcomes is a hot topic within professional services and within technologies organizations more broadly. What companies are finding is they can make a lot more money if they can tie their solutions directly to outcomes customers want to achieve. In this case, the problem that we had was we were working with a medium-sized integrator who was competing with some big-name players in the market. They had a team of top talent in the analytics space, but frankly, they had little pricing power because they had no name recognition and frankly, very little experience. And they had to compete on the flip side with low-cost providers that were charging as little as $50 per hour. So how do you compete and grow and achieve your growth and margin targets in this kind of an environment? Well, this was a 2-year journey to outcomes. It started with a small team of top talent during the land phase of the engagement cycle, billing at below market rates to establish a beachhead inside of target customer organizations. These small assessment projects, in turn, were turned into team-based proof of concept projects at market rates during the adopt phase of the LAER engagement cycle. Then, as time went on, and as performance was proven in, the organization was able to negotiate value pricing for projects that really delivered true efficiency to the client after the concepts were proven. This was the expand phase of the cycle. And over the course of this 2 years, average billing rates were increased from less than $100 per hour to over $330 an hour, resulting in a return that was 7 times the resource cost over that 2 years. And again, we have a little more detail that I'm not going to go into in this slide. So what are the next steps for you? Price improvements can increase revenue capture by 4 to 20% or even more in certain situations. And in many cases, organizations find they can increase their revenue capture at very high margins in the first year. So if you'd like to learn more about how we can do this, please contact me if you'd like to schedule a conversation about how better value and pricing practices might work in your business. Thanks for your attention. Hope this wasn't too long and would love your feedback in the comments below.